Hey, my name is Ameen and I'm a first year student at UNC Chapel Hill. In this video, we're going to be talking about Arabic calligraphy, and I'm actually going to show you how I draw some myself. But before we get into that, let's talk about what calligraphy is. Calligraphy is one of the world's most ancient and revered art forms, but keep in mind that the actual definition of calligraphy is simply decorative handwriting or handwritten lettering. This means that it's not just exclusive to Arabic, but in many parts of the world, the practice and actual importance of calligraphy has waned, with most of the calligraphy I've been seeing nowadays on the header of girls' notes. But in Arabic culture, the more than 2,000-year-old tradition remains as vibrant and as important as ever. The Arabic term for the artistry of Islamic handwriting and calligraphy is khat, and khat directly translates into line, which makes sense. Arabic calligraphy was originally used as a tool for communication, but over time it started being used in architecture and decoration, and this evolution was a reflection of the early Muslims' requirement to avoid figures and pictorials in their art, as stated in Islam. Wait, but Islam hasn't always been around on the Arabian Peninsula. And you've got a point. Before the spread of Islam, the Arabian Peninsula was home to a variety of early Semitic languages, and in these languages we found artifacts that show that the practice of calligraphy predates the widespread practice of Islam. But that aside, the spread of Islam is what truly ushered in a great age of calligraphy in the Middle East, and that's because 1, they unified the whole region under the Arabic language, and then 2, its veneration of written word over pictures like I mentioned earlier. But as you can guess, Arabic hasn't always been the way it is today. The first known alphabet was Arabic Musnad. This was the first Arabic script ever developed, but it does not look like modern Arabic. The letter shapes were very basic and resembled Nabatean and Canaanite alphabets. This then transitioned into Al-Jazm. Al-Jazm is where we start seeing some more modern-like letters, with some curves here and there and kinda recognizable letters, but not fully there. But from there, we move to the famous Kufic script. Kufic was the first universal script used and had letters that actually matched the modern-day Arabic alphabet. Kufic played an essential role in documenting the Quran, the holy book of Islam, early on, and would be one of the longest lasting scripts in common use up until the 13th century. Still, Kufic didn't have any of the nuqat, which are dots, or the harakat, which are the diacritical vowel marks. Also, the script was noticeably angular and long, but different regions developed their own styles of Kufic. Maghribi Kufic had curves and loops, Mashriqi Kufic would have thinner lines, and Fatimid Kufic would also have thicker lines but short curves. You might have also heard about Square Kufic, which has sharp angles and no curves at all. While Kufic did become a universal script, it started off very unsystemized and rough. That was until the Golden Age of Arabic calligraphy. The Golden Age took place between the 7th and 11th century and is usually mapped along the succession of 3 great calligraphers, Ibn Muqla, Ibn al-Bawab, and Yaqut al-Musta'asimi. Calligrapher 1, Ibn Muqla. Ibn Muqla is known as the father of Arabic calligraphy, and he codified the core principles of Arabic calligraphy, including his most famous edition, proportions. These proportions would use the letter alif and rhomboid dots to make sure that each letter was sized properly based on the height of your letters. He would also create some of the most famous Arabic scripts used today. Calligrapher 2, Ibn Bawab. Ibn Bawab refined many of the scripts Ibn Muqla made, but he also is famous for making Arabic cursive scripts, many of which are used today. Calligrapher 3, Yaqut al-Musta'asimi. Man, that is hard to pronounce. Not like my name's any easier. Yaqut al-Musta'asimi further systemized the proportion system through the use of circular proportions, and he also started the practice of cutting the pen tip at a slant. And that may not seem like that big of a deal, but doing that introduced lots of different styles and methods that made calligraphy more accessible for everybody. And of course, there were countless other calligraphers who studied under them, both men and women, who were renowned for their skill. Like, come on, it was the Golden Age of Arabic calligraphy. From there, different empires like the Mongol and Ottoman empires would spread Islam to further reaches of the globe, along with Arabic calligraphy. And as calligraphy was introduced to different regions, new and refined scripts would be made, leading to a huge variety of scripts we have today. You can get an idea for some of these different scripts by checking out www.emashq.com/calligraphy names. At this site, you can type in your name in Arabic, or just use the English to Arabic transliteration tool they have and see your name written in different types of Arabic calligraphy scripts from different regions of the Middle East and Northern Africa. And you know what? Let's go through a couple of these scripts rapid fire. Naskh. This was first developed in 10th century Turkey by the main man himself, Ibn Muqla. Naskh literally means copy in English, and it has an emphasis on proportions, and it would be standardized for Quranic scriptures. Thuluth. This was also developed by Ibn Muqla. It's a more extravagant style of Arabic calligraphy, but still very readable and sticks to the rules of proportions. Thuluth literally means 1/3, which refers to the width of the pen in proportion to the alif. You'll actually find this script on major monuments and figures such as the Sultan Ahmed Mosque in Turkey, the Taj Mahal in India, and the Saudi Arabian flag. Nasta'liq. This was first developed in 10th century Iran and parted away from the rules of proportions. Its combination of the Naskh script with its short vertical lines and the Ta'liq script with its steep and broad strokes. If you're Indian, Pakistani, Punjabi, or anywhere from that area, I guarantee that you'll recognize the script as it's the most popular script in that region. Diwani. This script is defined by its beautiful curves, which are usually merged together to form complex and decorative shapes like this one. Definitely one of the most artistic scripts out there. Riqqa. This is one of the most recently developed scripts made around the 18th century, and its root is based on warqa, which means paper or sheet in English. That's because this is one of the simplest scripts to write and is often used for long formal texts, but it's almost never used in decoration because it isn't especially eye-catching. Alright, those were some of the scripts listed on the website, but here's some honorable mentions. Muhaqqaq. This was developed by the cursive calligrapher Ibn Bawwab, and is said to be one of the most challenging scripts to get right, despite its informal nature. Fun fact, it is the standard font for Bismillah that you'll see in almost every Quran today. Taliq. This script is translated as suspension in English, and its whole motif is having the words appear to be hung together and connected to each other. The letters are rounded and have lots of curves, but there are large spaces in between lines for readability. Maghribi. Now we can't forget about our North African scripts. The script originated in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Spain, and drifted away from the Middle Eastern scripts with its unified thickness and large bold letters. Calligraffiti. Now, I'm not sure if this counts, but I feel like it's too cool to pass up. This unique script fuses calligraphy with Western graffiti to just give some jaw-dropping pieces such as these. The style began to die out in the early 2000s, but it's having a resurgence now with lots of new artists hopping into the mix. Now, those were a lot of scripts, and even then I didn't even cover every single script on that website, and there weren't even that many. But that's the thing about Arabic calligraphy. It's so unique, yet it covers a breadth of different genres and artistic styles. And if I had to say which ones are my favorite, at least out of the scripts, I think they'd have to be Naskh and Thuluth. And yes, I know, I get it, I'm basic. But what can I say, I'm just an Ibn Muqla fan. Okay, anyways, now that we've gone through more than enough history for this video, let's actually start doing some calligraphy. Alright, welcome to my unboxed therapy setup. Here you can see a picture of my desk looking down from above, so you'll be able to see what I'm drawing and what I'm doing. And for this calligraphy, I'm using pen and pencil. I'm not using a calligraphy pen, and I have one right here. So this is what calligraphers would normally use, and you see if you pop it open, you have the slanted tip, and normally I would love to use this, but I am out of ink and it's been a while. So we're just gonna use pen and pencil, and I think that's much more accessible for beginners who don't wanna go in and invest in a full pen. So yeah, here we go, let's start watching the video. So I always start off with a design draft, and what you see here is the first line, I just write out the Arabic in my handwriting. And on the second line, I add some little details and designs. And on the final, I guess, box, I actually do the full design. So when I'm designing these, I choose a script. So like I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite scripts is Thuluth. So I decided to choose that for this one. And what I draw is just the backbone. So the backbone, it doesn't have all the strokes, but it has kind of like the lines and the structure, and it'll give me an idea of what I'm drawing while I'm doing it. And I usually find this very helpful whenever I'm drawing, at least a big design, maybe not a small one, or if I'm just doing a sketch, I'll just sketch it. But for this, it definitely helps a lot. So you can see this is phase 1 of the design draft, and I'm adding guidelines in, there we go. Now we are moving on to phase 2, which is actually drawing the draft. So here I'm getting it set up, and I'm going to do it on a blank sheet paper, and I have my design right there on the right just to make sure I can keep track. And here we go, you see I draw the guidelines, and I'm starting to draw the calf right here. And you'll notice that whenever you draw these, you have to be sure to pay attention for proportions, right? Ibn Muqla's big thing was using proportions when drawing. So you can notice that the calf and lam have this distinct shape, and then there's the ra, and they all have to be the right size. And so you're drawing this, and as you can tell, you can start seeing that signature calligraphy stroke style where since it's at a slant and you keep it at the same angle the whole time, when you draw in different directions, it thins out at things like the curve. And so you can see at the base of the calf, you can see it thins out a little bit, but then thickens up again. And so here I go, I'm drawing the rest, and I'm going through, and now I'm about to start drawing the rhomboid dots. You can see that one on top of the noon. And those are what Ibn Muqla uses for proportions. So you gotta make sure those are sized correctly. Admittedly, I kinda eyeballed them here, but I think I did a pretty solid job based on like what I was seeing. Now, whenever I'm drawing these designs, and you can tell the backbone was the backbone, right? But when I'm actually drawing them, I'll usually have my computer open. So sometimes you'll see I'm not on the page, I'm not drawing, I'm just looking at something. And that is because I'm on the computer and I just search up whatever script I'm doing. So in this case, I just search up the scripts. And I look at the letters and the shapes, and I use that to kind of determine the design of when I'm drawing it. And it really helps like make the drawing or the piece look natural. And so here you can see I got a little stuck there. And that's because if you look on my design, I wanted the noon to go all the way out. But sadly, I found out that my page couldn't fit the whole thing. And I guess I overestimated how much space I had. So I decided to squeeze the scene there in the noon. Now we're going on to the top part. I wanted to save this top word for last piece. I wanted it a little smaller, but I wanted it to fit into the overall design. So I decided to save it for last to see if I can squeeze it in and how I can change it. And that resulted in me doing this dal, which is a little high up. And I found this design online as well, putting the ta marbuta inside the dal, but I thought it looked really cool. And so that's why I decided to do that. So you can see I'm putting the ta marbuta inside the dal. And again, with those rhomboid dots, except a little smaller for proportions, right? And so then I'm finishing off with the hamza, and looks like that's the design right there. Now we're gonna move on to the final part, and you can see phase 3 is the final drawing, and I have a lot of these pens. And that is because, if you can't tell already, those Sharpie pens are my favorite. And so what I did is, when you have a lot of them, you gotta make sure you test them to make sure to see which ones work well. And so I tested them, and it looks like these two are the best. So I tested them, and now I'm actually drawing it. And now you can actually see it starts looking like actual calligraphy with the dark strokes of what a pen would look like. Of course, different thicknesses, right? That smaller word on top. You couldn't really do that with a normal calligraphy pen unless you had different thicknesses, but yeah, that's just the nature of it. And I thought it looked really nice, at least for the sake of this piece. Now you can see I'm coloring in the rest, and what I'll do is I'll outline the base and then I'll color in from the inside to avoid going outside the lines when I'm drawing. And something about time lapses, when you're just watching these, it's like they go so fast. You don't even realize. I think this is at 40 times speed if you were curious. So it makes it look a lot faster than it actually is, but it's cool to watch. I think I'm having a good time. But yeah, here we go. Now I'm starting on the raw, and you see those little spikes, and that's also, it's not always in thuluth, but it's a key characteristic that you'll find on some. So you see the lam and the raw and the kaf and the dal and the ta marbuta, they have those little spikes, and that's just like one of the features of thuluth. So here we are in the scene, and we're finishing up with the noon, and noons have this very unique shape in thuluth, which I think is cool. Like my name has noon in it, Ameen, but it has like this spike down, but then takes a sharp turn and finishes off with this very organic hook. I think it looks really cool. So here we go, we're finishing it up by erasing all the guidelines, and there we go, it's finished. If you can't tell already, this says Ustada Caroline Robinson. She's my Arabic 101 professor, and shukran Ustada Caroline for everything. Hopefully I find a way to get this to you sometime during the pandemic. But yeah, that is it for my commentary on my calligraphy. Hey everybody, I just realized I forgot to record an ending clip for this video, so I just want to say thank you all for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two about calligraphy, and I hope you enjoyed watching me do some calligraphy myself. If you want to try doing some calligraphy, there's this cool video that my professor showed me that I'll put here on the screen, which lets you emulate a calligraphy pen with 2 pencils, so be sure to check that out, that's really cool. That's all I have. I need to end this quickly and finish up this video. So thank you all for watching. Take care.